All right, fellow knowledge seekers, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really interesting. We're using biology questions from previous year SSLC board exams as our starting point. But look, this isn't just about exam prep, right? It's about really getting into the why behind the answers.
Exactly. It's about understanding the core principles. These questions, they often come straight from the insert class 10th science textbook. They really form the bedrock of biology. So our mission today is to unpack these fundamentals, connect the dots, see how life actually works.
Yeah. So if you're studying, or honestly, if you're just curious about, well, life, get ready. We're diving into life processes, control, reproduction, heredity, our environment, the whole shebang. Okay, let's get into it. First up, let's imagine shrinking down, way down into the world of plants. How do they handle essentials like, breathing and transport?
It's actually quite fascinating when you look closely. Take stomata, for example. We often see diagrams, right? Open versus closed pores. These tiny openings are key for gas exchange CO2 in, oxygen out, but the clever bit is the guard cells on either side.
Guard cells, right. They control the opening.
Precisely. When water flows into them, they swell up, kind of curve outwards, and that opens the pore. And when water leaves, they shrink, closing the pore. It's this brilliant little mechanism. It regulates gas exchange, sure, but also water loss through transpiration, a real balancing act.
So it's like a smart, self-regulating gate for the plant.
Yeah.
And transpiration, that's not just water evaporating, is it? It's more powerful than that.
Oh, absolutely. Transpiration creates this suction pressure, a continuous pull. Think of it pulling water all the way up from the roots right to the top leaves, even against gravity. That's how xylem works, carrying water and minerals. It's why even tall trees get water way up high.
Amazing. Okay, from plant pores to, well, us. Let's talk digestion. That food we eat, what's the chemistry going on inside our stomach and small intestine?
Digestion. It's a real chemical symphony, as you say. In the stomach, you've got gastric glands. They release hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and mucus. Crucial stuff. The acid creates the right acidic environment needed for pepsin to start breaking down proteins.
But acid, doesn't that harm the stomach itself?
Good question. That's where mucus is key. It coats the stomach lining, protecting it from the acid. Ingenious, really. Then the food moves to the small intestine. And it gets help from the pancreas and liver.
Pancreatic juice and bile juice, right?
Exactly. Bile salts from the liver emulsify fats, basically break down large fat drops into tiny ones so enzymes can work better. Then trypsin from the pancreatic juice continues protein digestion, and lipase tackles those emulsified fats. And finally, enzymes in the intestine wall finish the job. Proteins to amino acids, carbs to glucose, fats to fatty acids, and glycerol, ready for absorption.
Wow, okay. That's a lot of steps just to break down a meal. So once these nutrients are ready, how do they get around in us and in plants?
Right, transport systems. In plants, we need to look at xylem and phloem. Xylem, we touched on it. It's the water conductor, made of vessels and tracheids. Forms a continuous channel from roots up, and it relies heavily on that transpiration pull we talked about to move water and minerals upwards.
Okay, so xylem is the upward water pipe. What about phloem?
Phloem is different. It transports the food made during photosynthesis, sugars mostly, but also amino acids. It moves this food from the leaves to where it's needed, could be storage in roots, growing parts, fruits. And unlike xylem, phloem can move things both up and down. It uses sieve tubes and companion cells driven by osmotic pressure differences.
Up and down. Interesting. Okay, now our own system, this is always fascinating. The human heart. How does it manage that incredible feat of keeping oxygenated and deoxygenated blood totally separate?
Our double circulation. It's a marvel of efficiency, really. The heart has 4 chambers, and crucially, there's a wall, the septum, dividing the right side, handling deoxygenated blood, from the left side, handling oxygenated blood. Valves make sure blood flows only one way. This separation is vital for mammals and birds like us.
Why vital?
Because we need a very efficient oxygen supply to maintain our constant body temperature and support our high energy levels. Mixing the blood would just be less efficient. Blood itself is complex too. Plasma carries food, CO2 waste. RBCs, the red blood cells, are packed with hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin, the oxygen carrier.
Exactly. It has this high affinity for oxygen, grabs it in the lungs, delivers it everywhere. And the vessels, arteries carrying blood from the heart, have thick elastic walls to handle the pressure. Veins carrying blood to the heart are under lower pressure, have thinner walls, and need valves to stop blood flowing backwards.
It really is an amazing integrated system. Okay, so things go in, get transported, but what about getting rid of waste, excretion?
Right. What goes in must come out, or rather, waste products need removing. In humans, the kidneys are the stars here. Inside them are millions of tiny filtering units called nephrons. Think of them as complex filters. Blood flows in, gets filtered. The initial filtrate has waste, yes, but also good stuff: glucose, amino acids, salts, water.
So the body reclaims the good stuff.
Precisely. The nephron selectively reabsorbs what the body needs back into the blood. What's left behind, primarily water, urea, uric acid, other salts, becomes urine, which is then excreted.
In plants, they don't have kidneys, obviously. How do they manage?
Plants have diverse strategies. They get rid of excess water via transpiration through stomata. Gases like oxygen, a waste product of photosynthesis during the day, and CO2 also exit through stomata. Some waste gets stored in vacuoles within cells and is removed when leaves fall or bark is shed. Others store waste like resins and gums in old, non-functional xylem. Some can even diffuse waste into the soil. Very resourceful.
Resourceful indeed. Okay, now, let's shift gears. How is all this coordinated? The control systems in living things.
A key concept here is the difference between reflex actions and other involuntary actions. A reflex, like pulling your hand from a hot pan, is super fast, automatic. It doesn't even involve conscious thought initially. The signal goes to the spinal cord and straight back to the muscle, bypasses the main thinking part of the brain for speed. It's about survival.
Faster than thinking, basically. And involuntary actions, like breathing.
Right. Things like heartbeat, breathing, digestion movements, they're also involuntary. We don't consciously control them. But they're generally regulated by the midbrain and hindbrain, not the spinal cord reflexes. They're usually slower, more about maintaining ongoing bodily functions, that internal balance or homeostasis.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, plants, they don't have nerves or a brain, but they definitely respond to things. Light, gravity.
They use chemical messengers, phytohormones, plant hormones. Some promote growth, like auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins. Auxins are fascinating. They cause cells to elongate. This is key for phototropism, growing towards light. More auxin gathers on the shaded side of a stem, making those cells grow longer, bending the stem towards the light.
Ah, so that's how it works. And tendrils curling around things.
Auxins again. When a tendril touches a support, auxin moves away from the contact side. So the side not touching grows faster, causing the tendril to coil around the support. Clever stuff. Then you have hormones like abscisic acid, which inhibit growth, maybe causing leaves to wilt in drought or inducing dormancy. These hormones drive tropisms.
Tropisms, directional responses, like phototropism towards light, geotropism responding to gravity.
Exactly. And hydrotropism towards water.
Right.
Plants are constantly chemically sensing and responding.
And animals, we have hormones too, a whole endocrine system.
Absolutely, a powerful system. Think about adrenaline, the emergency hormone. Secreted in stress, it triggers the fight or flight response. Heart rate up, breathing faster, blood pressure rises, more oxygen to muscles. It prepares the body for intense activity.
Instantly feel that rush sometimes.
Right. Then there's insulin from the pancreas, absolutely vital for regulating blood sugar. It helps cells take up glucose from the blood, storing excess as glycogen. We also have estrogen for female development and reproductive cycles, thyroxine from the thyroid controlling overall metabolism. And the levels are usually kept in check by feedback mechanisms. The body senses if there's too much or too little and adjusts production. It's all about balance.
Incredible control systems. Okay, let's move to the next big topic. How life continues. Reproduction and heredity.
Reproduction strategies are so varied. Asexual reproduction first. It involves just one parent, and offspring are genetically identical. You see binary fission in single-celled organisms like amoeba or leishmania, just splitting in two. Then there's regeneration in planaria. Cut a flatworm into pieces, and each piece can often grow into a whole new worm. Remarkable.
Wow, regeneration is amazing.
Isn't it? Hydra does budding. A small outgrowth forms, develops, and detaches as a new individual. And fungi like Rhizopus, the bread mold, use spore formation. Tiny spores are released, dispersed, and can grow into new fungi if conditions are right. Very efficient dispersal.
Okay, those are the simpler paths. What about sexual reproduction, especially in plants? Flowering plants are all about that, right?
Yes, flowers are the reproductive structures. It starts with pollination, getting pollen from the male part, stamen, to the female part, stigma. And note, a flower with only stamens can't pollinate itself. It needs pollen from elsewhere or another flower. After pollen lands, a pollen tube grows down towards the ovule. Then fertilization happens. The male gamete from the pollen fuses with the female gamete, the ovum. inside the ovule. This forms the zygote.
And that zygote becomes?
The zygote develops into the embryo, inside the ovule, which itself develops into the seed, and the ovary surrounding the ovules ripens and becomes the fruit. The petals and other parts usually just wither away then.
Fruit is basically the developed ovary protecting the seeds. Got it. Now, human reproduction. Two key questions often come up. Why are testes outside the body? And what's the placenta really doing?
Good questions, based on important biology. The testes are in the scrotum, outside the main body cavity. This is because sperm production, spermatogenesis, happens optimally at a temperature slightly lower than the core body temperature. It's a crucial adaptation.
Okay, temperature control for sperm and the placenta.
The placenta. It's a truly vital organ, though temporary. It forms in the uterus during pregnancy. It's basically the interface between mother and developing baby, a disc of tissue embedded in the uterine wall. It provides a huge surface area for exchange. Oxygen and nutrients, like glucose, pass from the mother's blood to the baby's blood.
And waste goes the other way.
Exactly. Waste products from the baby's metabolism cross the placenta into the mother's blood for her body to eliminate. It's the lifeline. After the egg is fertilized, becomes an embryo, implants, the placenta supports its growth into a fetus.
A lifeline, good way to put it. Okay, let's talk about the blueprint itself. Heredity, how traits get passed down. Mendel's work.
Yes. Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, his work with pea plants was revolutionary. He showed traits are passed down as discrete units, we call them genes now, and he identified dominant traits which show up even if only one copy of the gene is present, and recessive traits which only appear if two copies are present and no dominant one.
Like eye color, for example. Brown often being dominant over blue.
Sort of, though human traits are often more complex. But Mendel's principle holds. His dihybrid cross experiments were particularly insightful. He tracked two traits at once, say seed shape, round wrinkled, and seed color, yellow-green. He crossed pure round yellow, RRYY, with pure wrinkled green, RRY. The first generation F1 were all hybrids, RRYY, showing both dominant traits, round and yellow.
Okay, hybrids showing dominant traits. What happened next?
When he self-pollinated those F1 plants, the second generation, F2, showed a mix. And crucially, it appeared in predictable ratio. 9 round yellow, 3 round green, 3 wrinkled yellow, and 1 wrinkled green. That classic 9.3.3.1 ratio proved that the genes for seed shape and seed color were inherited independently of each other. A massive discovery.
Independent assortment. Wow, okay, one more heredity point, sex determination in humans. There's often confusion here.
Indeed, though biologically it's quite clear, it comes down to sex chromosomes. Females have 2 X chromosomes, XX. Males have 1 X and 1 Y, XY. A mother can only pass on an X chromosome in her egg. A father produces sperm, half carrying an X chromosome, half carrying a Y.
So it depends on which sperm fertilizes the egg.
Exactly. If an X-carrying sperm fertilizes the egg, the baby is XX, a girl. If a Y-carrying sperm fertilizes the egg, the baby is XY, a boy. So, biologically speaking, the father's contribution determines the sex of the child. It's a 50-50 chance each time.
Very clear. Okay, last section. Let's zoom out to the big picture, our environment, ecosystems, and our place in it.
Right, connecting biology to ecology. A key concept is energy flow, often shown in food chains. You might notice food chains are usually short, maybe 3 or 4 steps, like grasshopper, frog, snake. Why so short? It's because of the 10% law.
The 10% law.
Yeah. Only about 10% of the energy stored in one trophic level, like the grasshoppers, actually gets converted into biomass at the next level, the frogs. The other 90% is lost, used for metabolism, movement, lost as heat, or just not eaten. So there's progressively less energy available as you go up the food chain. Not enough to support many levels. And if one level gets out of balance, say too many grasshoppers, it can destabilize the whole chain.
That energy loss is huge.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if harmful persistent chemicals get into that food chain?
That leads to biological magnification or biomagnification, a serious problem. This happens with substances that aren't easily broken down or excreted, like certain pesticides, DDT was a classic example, or heavy metals. They accumulate in an organism's tissues. When that organism is eaten, the predator consumes all the accumulated chemical from many prey individuals, so the concentration increases dramatically at each higher trophic level.
Meaning top predators, including us sometimes, end up with the highest levels.
Exactly. That's the danger. Organisms at the top of the food chain can accumulate dangerous concentrations, even if the levels in the environment seem low initially.
A sobering thought. Okay, let's talk protection. The ozone layer. Earth's natural sunscreen. We hear about the ozone hole. What's the story?
The ozone layer, high up in the stratosphere, is crucial. Ozone O3 itself is actually toxic down here, but up there it absorbs most of the sun's harmful ultraviolet UV radiation. UV can cause skin cancer, cataracts, damage crops, harm plankton. Ozone forms naturally when UV light splits oxygen molecules O2 into single O atoms, which then react with other O2 molecules to make O3. It's a dynamic balance.
And we disrupted that balance.
We did, mainly with chlorofluorocarbon CFCs, used in old refrigerators, air conditioners, aerosols. These chemicals are very stable, float up to the stratosphere, get broken down by UV, and release chlorine atoms. And one chlorine atom can destroy thousands of ozone molecules. That caused the thinning, the ozone hole. Thankfully, international agreements, like the Montreal Protocol driven by UNEP, phased out CFCs. The ozone layer is recovering, slowly. A success story for global action.
Hopeful example. Okay, finally, let's bring it right back home. Waste. Biodegradable versus non-biodegradable. Why does this distinction matter so much in our daily lives?
It matters hugely for pollution and sustainability. Biodegradable waste food, scraps, paper, cotton can be broken down by microbes like bacteria and fungi. They decompose, eventually returning nutrients to the environment. Okay, sometimes decomposition smells, but it's part of a natural cycle.
And non-biodegradable.
That's the tricky stuff. Plastics, glass, metals, synthetic fabrics. Microbes can't break these down effectively, so they just persist. They pile up in landfills, pollute oceans, harm wildlife. Plastic pollution is a massive global issue. Plus, some non-biodegradable items can leach harmful chemicals or contribute to problems like biological magnification if they contain toxins.
So our choices at the shop or when throwing things away really add up.
Absolutely. Choosing a reusable bag over plastic. Thinking about the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. Reducing consumption in the first place is best. Reusing items like glass jars. Recycling materials where possible. Composting kitchen waste turns biodegradable waste into useful fertilizer. These aren't small things when millions of people do them. It makes a real difference.
Phew. That was quite the deep dive, wasn't it? From tiny stomata to global environmental issues, it really drives home how interconnected everything is in biology. Every question opens up a whole world.
It really does. And understanding these core concepts, the ones covered in class 10th, it's not just for exams. It genuinely helps appreciate the elegance of life, how organisms survive, reproduce, interact, how we fit in.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a final thought for all of you listening. Think about it. Every tiny biological event, a plant opening a pore, a gene being switched on, even just choosing not to take a plastic bag, it all ripples outwards, shaping the massive, complex ecosystem we depend on. So maybe ask yourself, what's one small choice you can make today or tomorrow to better support these incredible life processes happening all around us? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.